When my family moved from Los Angeles to Kansas City, we made 5 big mistakes. What are they? Keep on watching. What is up? My name is Jalen Wong, and you have found the Living in Kansas City YouTube channel run by the Fountain City Real Estate team. When my family moved from Los Angeles to Kansas City, we made 5 huge mistakes that we wouldn't make again if we were to do this. If you're considering moving to Kansas City, not only should you watch this video so you don't make the same mistakes that we did, but you should also reach out to us because we help people relocate here all the time. We tell them about the area, we tell them about the homes, we tell them about everything. So if you're looking to relocate from anywhere, not just Los Angeles, but anywhere to Kansas City, give us a call. 816-4-MOVE-KC. 816-4-MOVE-KC. So here's a mistake that I made before we moved to Kansas City, and that I didn't visit Kansas City, and so I didn't get a feel for the different neighborhoods. And one of the things I kind of regret was not looking harder where I am right now, which is in Leawood. I'm in a neighborhood called Leawood South, and right now these homes are going for $500,000, maybe $600,000, maybe plus. But before, when we were buying in 2019, if we would have just stretched our budget a little bit, we probably could have gotten a really nice home like this. Right behind me here, probably a 3 to 4 bedroom, that beautiful white house here. I know this house right here is actually for sale, went under contract in 2 days, but probably could have gotten something like that. But since I didn't know the area, I kind of relied on the advice of other people instead of coming here and exploring. If we would have explored Leawood, we would have fallen in love with Leawood, and we would have definitely wanted to move into here. And since we didn't do that, we ended up in a different area, and we have no regrets, really, we don't. It's not something like we hated the area that we live in, or we wish that we would have moved elsewhere, but I just did not know all of the options that I had. I didn't even know that Kansas City was such a big area and so vastly different. Let me tell you a story. When we first moved here, or when we were getting ready to move here, one of my people at our old church where I used to work as a pastor, one of them pulled me aside and said, hey, if you're moving to Kansas City and you're moving to a really rural area, one of the things you really want to make sure to do is you want to go visit the big city once in a while, right? You're going to be out in this rural farmland, you're going to probably be on acreage, and you're going to miss being around people. And I was like, oh yeah, that's good advice. Not knowing that, hey, Kansas City, there's not that, I mean, in the KC Metro, most of it is not rural, right? I mean, there's some rural areas, obviously, but I mean, this is the city, this is the metro. And I just had no idea because I was so ignorant of these different areas. Man, we would have loved living in Leawood South. Number one, there's a country club behind me. I love to play golf, so I would have loved to play at Leawood Country Club. I mean, look at this canopy of trees here. As I'm filming this right now, it is beautiful. It is incredible. I'm not getting wet at all. I mean, this is awesome. This is such a sweet neighborhood, and I had no idea about it because I didn't bother to come and visit. We didn't come and visit before, and that was one of the things, man. The first time that we came to even see our house was after we had already closed on it. We had already signed all the papers, we had already turned in the check to the title company. The house is actually ours officially before we even stepped foot inside of it. And we kind of took the move a little bit willy-nilly, but we did not know the areas. We did not come to visit, so don't make that mistake. If you're thinking about moving to Kansas City, make sure you come and visit. Make sure you give us a call. We'll take you around. We'll show you the different areas because you get so vastly different things for the different price points. And you're gonna wanna know what schools you're gonna wanna be in. You're gonna wanna know what's important to you. Do you need a walkable neighborhood? Actually, here in Leawood South, I mean, it's walkable just because it's not super busy. But one of the things that I wish that they had was a sidewalk. And when we moved up in Gladstone, we moved up in 2020, there is still no sidewalk. A lot of the times we have to walk right on the street like this, and you can kind of see the cars kind of zooming by here. And if I had my kid and I wasn't really paying attention, then I wouldn't necessarily feel the best about it. So make sure you come visit. Don't make the same mistake that we did in not coming to visit, not learning more about the areas, because you may be missing out on some really cool areas that you may enjoy living in. When you do come and visit, I mean, picture yourself here, picture your family here. What would it be like if we lived in Leawood South? What would it be like if we were members of Leawood Country Club? What would it be like if we, really spent the time to research, because you may be missing out on some really cool areas if you decide to do what we did and to buy a house without really ever visiting. I mean, we had visited once in like a few months before we moved, but we spent all the time that we had in Independence, and I think we went to this Bass Pro Shop down there, which we didn't even end up moving there. So we didn't know the area, we didn't know anything about it. So you can see here, Leawood South, one of my greatest regrets, not coming to visit. I wish I would have done it. So don't make the same mistake. All right, so I'm out in front of a local grocery store chain here called Hy-Vee. If you're not in the Midwest and you don't know what Hy-Vee is, it's like a Ralph's or a Trader Joe's. Really not like a Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's is more specialized. An Albertsons, man, what are other places? A Kroger's, those types of things. You get what I'm saying. So I'm over here at this Hy-Vee, and one of the things that I would have done differently in moving to Kansas City was I did not know where to shop. Okay, 2 stories about this. So first of all, really positive story about this woman here at this Hy-Vee. She really made us feel welcome when we were first moving here to Kansas City and shopping, and COVID had just shut everything down. She took the time to really ask about my kids, really ask about my wife, and not in a like a, hey, how are you doing kind of way where it's just like pleasantries, but in an actual probing, curious way where she seemed like she really cared about us and our young family that had just moved here, and my wife's job, who was in the ER at the time, so you can imagine how crazy COVID was. So that kind lady, I think her name was Sherry or Cheryl. Thank you if you ever watch this, for making us feel so welcome here in Kansas City. She works at this Hy-Vee, or she worked at this Hy-Vee as of a few years ago. I don't know if she does anymore. But that's the first positive story. Second story about Hy-Vee is that, man, we noticed when we got here, our grocery bills were so high, and that was because we would come to Hy-Vee for everything. And Hy-Vee is great. They've got a great selection. They've got everything you could possibly want, but they're expensive. I would say it's way more expensive than an Aldi. Aldi is where you want to go if you're moving here to Kansas City and you're looking to shop on a budget, grocery shop on a budget. We've even figured, and this may be heresy for some people, and it's borderline heresy for us, but Hy-Vee is actually cheaper than Costco in a lot of things. You may not think it, you may not believe it, but we did the calculations. Okay, we got the receipts. Hy-Vee's cheaper, Aldi's cheaper than Costco. Definitely cheaper than Hy-Vee. Okay, so don't go to Price Chopper, don't go to Hy-Vee, go to Aldi if you want to save money on your groceries. Another thing is, I'm going to show you a shot of Little Saigon here. We were living so close to this plaza called Little Saigon that has the best Vietnamese food, has the best Oriental food, has the best boba milk tea. If you don't know what that is, look that up. And we didn't know anything about it. We were eating all this like really nasty kind of imitation Oriental food, like the Panda Expresses and stuff like that. And you know, we don't eat Oriental food a lot, but once in a while we do enjoy it, and we couldn't find a good place for it. So we just didn't know where to shop. I would do your research before. Where are the good spots to eat? If you need help, give me a call, 816-4-MOVE-KC. We've been exploring all over the KC Metro now, so we could point you to 5 or 6 different good Oriental spots here in the Northland or down south, wherever you want. But that was one of the mistakes that we made that we wish we would have done over again, is done more research about the places to shop. Again, don't shop at Hy-Vee, don't shop at Price Chopper, shop at Aldi. That's the place that you want to go. Also, there's a lot of good Oriental food. You just got to know where to look. Okay, it's not littered everywhere. Like if you're coming from like a very diverse place like LA, it's not everywhere. Okay, it's only in certain pockets, and we know where to look. So give us a call. Here's another mistake that we made when moving to Kansas City. I'm in a beautiful 2-bedroom home in a very, very desirable neighborhood here in Kansas City, and we did not consider what it would be like to actually move into our first home after being renters for a long time. So we weren't clear on what we needed our home to have. We knew that we probably needed 2 bedrooms, but in all honesty, we needed at least 3. We didn't consider the inconveniences of shoveling snow, moving to a different climate, transitioning to an area where we're stepping into home ownership and we don't really know anything about the home itself. This is such a beautiful home. It's a charming neighborhood. It's gonna go fast. It's gonna go over asking price here in Kansas City. It's got a beautiful kitchen, and we would have loved something like this because it looks just like out of a magazine. I mean, it is fantastically done, but it wouldn't have worked for our family. And I'll tell you why. Is because soon after we came to Kansas City, we had our second kid, and there's only 2 bedrooms here. And another thing too is my wife has these foot issues. And when we actually did move into a home in Kansas City where the laundry was actually down here on the basement floor, and really it's a hassle for her to come down here and to do the laundry down here. Another thing that you'll have to know too is about the home specifically. You see behind me here, this home, these foundations have been reinforced. And we moved into a home where the foundations were reinforced, and we knew nothing about that. Luckily, nothing has happened to us, and in terms of just the home itself is still in good shape, but we had no clue, and we didn't do any of the research. So you're gonna need to know that when you move into a different area, especially if you're coming to an area where there's no clay soil, especially if you're coming to an area from an area where there's no clay soil and you don't know that the foundation problems are not common. Foundation problems are super common here in Kansas City. Also too, you see this? This is a radon monitor. Radon is super common in Kansas City. So the mistake that we made was not educating ourselves about the homes here, not educating ourselves about home ownership. That's one thing that you're gonna need to do, is educate yourself about home ownership, because there's so many people who are just like us, moving from a really high price point area, realizing that they can move here to Kansas City, that they can buy, and they're just in such a rush to buy that they just see the beautiful things, like going back up to this area, the beautiful things, but they don't know the guts of the home. They don't know anything about home ownership. They don't know, they see this beautiful shiplap and they see, you know, the Joanna Gaines style, and this is beautiful, this is wonderful. I think a lot of people would be really happy in this home, and there's nothing wrong with this home at all. But you're gonna need to know that home ownership a lot of times comes with a lot of issues that you're gonna have to mitigate for. You're going to have to know how much foundation issues cost. You're gonna know what a sump pump, you're gonna wanna know what a sump pump is. You're gonna wanna know what the components of a home, the HVAC, the AC, all of that stuff. How much does it cost to replace a roof here in Kansas City? What are foundation issues that you can get? All of those things you're gonna need to know. We didn't know, wish we would have done it differently, but hey, we got taken care of and we're happy. So know that home ownership has its costs. You're gonna need to know what kind of home you have, what kind of home you need. So one thing that I didn't know before I moved here that I wish I did was how to drive in the snow. So it's in the middle of July right now. It's pretty hot, it's 90 degrees, but if you don't know, Kansas City can get really cold and there's a ton of snow in the winter. And so I'm on the in an intersection in Gladstone. We moved not too far from Gladstone when we first moved to Kansas City. So this is like a walkable distance to my old house. But I remember I was driving down this particular street down here, and I don't know if you can kind of see it, but it's a pretty gradual slope here, but then it gets up to a bigger slope here. It's by no means not like a huge slope, but I do remember that one time I was coming down this street heading home, and my car started to skid, and my car slid all the way through this intersection right here behind me, all the way down, and it didn't stop until it was almost like half a block down. And the mistake that I had made was I didn't know how to drive in the snow. Being raised in California, we don't drive in the snow. I mean, that's just not something that we do. So luckily, you know, you see two cars passing through here. Luckily, there was nobody here for me to hit when I had that malfunction with my car. But one of the things that I've learned since then is you don't smash on your brakes. So you can picture somebody who's never driven in the snow before kind of panicking as their car's not stopping, as you're trying to slow down at the stop sign. And so I just mashed my brakes and continued mashing them and mashing and mashing, and my car continued to slide because my brakes had locked up, and this was completely covered in ice. So I slid all the way, like I said, all the way through this intersection, all the way down here. There's the cars coming all the way down to the bottom of that hill that you can see. And luckily nobody was here, nobody even saw. And you know, once I regained control of my car, I was able to drive home with no issues. But if you're gonna move to Kansas City, one of the things you're gonna wanna know is how to drive in the snow, because there's gonna be snow, even if there's not snow right now, there's gonna be snow later. So yeah, and you might say, hey, you're an idiot coming from, maybe you're coming from like a place where there's a lot of snow, maybe you're coming from the East Coast or Maine or something like that, and you're saying, hey, you know, this guy's an idiot, he doesn't know how to drive in the snow. Hey, I'm sorry, I was from Southern California. I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, so I never had an opportunity to drive in the snow at all. And so, yeah, as I come back to visit this place, I'm really thankful that nothing did happen, because you can see it's not like a empty intersection. There's 4 cars that have been here in the few minutes that I've been filming. So one thing to know, if you're gonna live in Kansas City, you need to know how to drive in the snow. So when we lived in California, there was this area that my wife and I would love would have loved to live in, and we loved to walk in. It was called Pasadena. If you're familiar with where the Rose Parade is, then you'll kind of know where Pasadena is. Pasadena, when I was growing up there, was not really upscale, but now, as people flocked into Los Angeles and the property value shot up, Pasadena was super sought after. It was super, very trendy area to live. A lot of close things to, a lot of places to, a lot of places where you could do things, a lot of fun things, especially younger people would enjoy. And the last mistake has to do with not knowing how areas compare, because we could have easily afforded to move into an area like Pasadena here in Kansas City, because from where we came from in Los Angeles, it was such a higher price point. It was incredibly expensive to live in Pasadena, whereas if we would have spent $600,000 to live in Pasadena, we could have spent $300,000 or maybe even less than that to live in an area like this, which is Prairie Village. It's a beautiful area, it's a beautiful location. I mean, you can see here's a new build in Prairie Village. We could have easily moved to this area, but you know, the mistake that we made was not knowing how these two areas compared. We didn't know what types of Pasadena areas were around here that were trendy, upscale, where we had all the amenities that we could want, hop, skip, and a jump away. So that was another mistake that we made. I wish that we would have done more research on the area in terms of how areas compared, because we automatically thought, hey, because we can't afford to live in Pasadena, we can't afford to live in an upscale area in Kansas City. And we should have done our research, because we could have very easily gotten a house in Prairie Village, a small house like these houses. These houses are 2 to 3 bedrooms, I would imagine, at most. Maybe some of the bigger ones are 4. But I love this area because of the tree coverage. I love this area because it's super walkable, it's super safe. It reminds me of Pasadena. It reminds me of those upscale areas where for $600,000, $700,000 you would have to spend to get in those areas, probably more now, $800,000, $900,000, but you could still get a beautiful house in Prairie Village. I mean, there's one behind me over here for $250,000. So you have to come here, you have to do your research, you have to know how areas compare, because you may just assume, oh, we can't afford to live in this area, we can't afford to live in this area because you can't do it there in New York. Well, you can easily get way more for your money here in Kansas City than you do in New York. And that's one of the things that we wish that we would have done, was to do our research in terms of how comparing areas from where you're moving from to where you're moving to. And so doing those direct comparisons, we would have just been a lot better. So last mistake that we made, we didn't do area comparisons, and we just didn't know the areas. It goes back all around to knowing the areas. So all that going to say, if you're looking to move to Kansas City, we know these areas. Give us a call, 816-4MOVE-KC. We get calls from people all the time, and we relocate people all the time. It's one of the funnest things to do, to talk through the excitement and the fear and the anxiety of moving to a new area. I know that it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do, but we would love to make it easier for you. So 816-4MOVE-KC.